climbing by nature is an outdoor sport. And that's where you can really push the envelope of human capacity, because it's like there's this limitless horizon of what you can possibly achieve, and places that you can climb, cliffs to ascend.
Welcome back, everyone, to the School of Greatness podcast. We've got Sasha Digiulian in the house. What's up, girl?
So excited to be here.
I've been trying to get you on for, I think, a year and a half, I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
We connected on Instagram, so this is our first time hanging out in person, but it's been fun to watch your journey. And I'm always curious and fascinated about connecting with people like yourself, because what you do is extremely difficult, and I could never do it. So I appreciate your artistry, your work ethic, and your skill level, because it's just so much, like, I can't even climb like 7 feet on an easy wall. I tried this last year where it was like a big handles and everything.
Yeah.
It was like, man, I suck. My mobility is horrible. Like, I can't stay close enough to the wall. I'm just like this big giant on there. So you are.
It's all relative.
It is,
It's
of
like,
course.
That's my little niche.
This is your thing, and you're a former world champion. Is that right? And
Yeah,
three-time USA champion. And what's the discipline called?
So world champion, I was the overall world champion. So that's the combination of all 3 disciplines.
Wow.
Sport climbing, bouldering, and speed climbing. And for nationals, it's sport climbing.
Okay.
So nationals and Panams and
And all
slew
that.
competitions.
What's the difference between the 3? Can you, for those that don't know anything about
Yeah,
climbing?
no, that's a great question. So speed climbing is basically the most digestible form of competition climbing that you could describe to an audience, and that's whoever gets to the top of a homogulated wall wins.
Artificial wall.
Artificial wall. Yeah. So
And
it's the same holds.
How tall is the
It's
wall?
15 meters,
15 meters. What is that? 40.
which is about 45 feet.
Okay, 45 feet.
Yeah. And then sport climbing is also all of competition climbing is on artificial settings.
Okay.
So sport climbing is more of a difficult path that no one has ever climbed on before. And so it's new to every single competitor. So we're all on like a clean playing field.
You don't get to practice beforehand.
No, you don't.
You just see the wall.
You see the wall, and then you have one shot to get as high as you can. And then the tiebreaker is time.
Wow.
And then bouldering is similar, but it's a composite of different boulder problems. So normally there's 4 to 5 boulder problems, and in each of these there's rounds. So there's like qualifiers, semifinals, finals. But bouldering is the shorter, more powerful form of climbing. So there's like normally about 8 movements, and they're on shorter walls, whereas sport climbing's on like 15 to 20 meter walls. It's like 45 to 60 feet. Bouldering is on like maximum 15 feet
Got it.
tall, because you don't have
wow.
a rope. So if you fall onto what's like a
mat or
gymnastics
something.
pad. Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Okay, so you started this when you were really young.
Yeah, I started climbing when I was 6.
And did your dad get you into this, or does someone?
No. So I went to my brother's birthday party at a local climbing gym, and he was turning 8. He was a hockey player. I was figure skating. We went. It was like this little group of boy hockey players and me. And then I grew up super competitive with my brother, and I think that like something that was like very engaging about climbing for me was that finally I found what I was better than my brother at.
Your first try.
Yeah, but I did well. I think I had a natural inclination to like do well on at the birthday party. I mean, whatever that means. And so the gym employee told my mom, "Hey, Sasha seems to really enjoy this. You know, we have a junior team program," and that was this program that meets like each Wednesday and Saturday morning. And so I started going to that. It was like a group of youth kids from the area. I grew up in DC.
Yeah.
And then one Saturday morning, I walked into the gym. I was 7, and they were holding a youth regional championship. So that was how I like literally stumbled upon the world of competition climbing.
Wow. And
Yeah.
the rest is history. You just kept pursuing it.
Yeah, so that's when I went to the first competition. I was 7. I competed in 11 and under. I won my category, kind of like...
The first competition?
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, like beginner's luck. And then I started competing at a youth level. I started competing. My first international competition was actually the North American Championships in Mexico City. When I think I was 10 or 11.
That's pretty cool.
And then that was my first like big international competition to win. And then I started competing for the U.S. national team when I was 16, because that's your eligibility for competing for the U.S. on like the World Cup circuit. And then did the World Cup circuit, won the World Championships. Then I started transitioning my career more to outdoor climbing.
So after you won the World Championships, how old were you then?
I was 18, just turning 19.
18, that's starting to get like old in the competition world, right?
It is, like it's definitely, I mean, in your competition prime, I would say that you're about 16 to 20, 22.
Okay, so you won the World Championships. Was that always the goal as a kid? Was like to go be on the USA team, win the World Championships?
Yeah, I mean, my goals as a kid was like win nationals or like climb 514, which is a number in climbing that climbing's on this grade scale of 5-point scale. So as you progress up the numerical scale, it becomes numerically more challenging. So that's like, yeah, exactly.
So a 5.0 would be
5.0 is super easy. It's like a slab, like a
it's like
inverted.
You can walk up.
Yeah, it's like walking on like a Versa climber or something.
Oh, really?
And then
so I could do that.
You could definitely do
perfect.
like higher grades than that.
Okay.
And then as you get into 510, that's when it starts getting like more technically challenging. So like the grades break into subcategories of A, B, C, D, and that's 5.10A, and then 5.10B is harder than 5.10A, and then it goes up to 515. And
5.15.
5.15, yeah.
That's like the hardest grade. Is that like straight up?
Yeah, well, that's like basically like there's like very minimal holds, and it's at like a challenging angle. And I mean, the beauty of climbing is you fall a million times before piecing together something that you're working on. So while it seems like, I mean, one question I get asked a lot is, do you ever fall? And it's kind of ironic to me because I fall all the time. I'm not free soloing. My discipline is free climbing. So free climbing and free soloing, the difference is that I have a rope. So if I fall into the rope and I'm totally safe.
But you fall and hit a rock still, right?
Ideally not. Like you fall into air, or like you kind of like pendulum softly into the rock.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're lead climbing, you have different points of security along the way, and you're basically clipping a carabiner into the rock, which is in a bolt, and then you clip your rope into that carabiner, and then if you fall, you basically fall to your lowest, your carabiner that's below you.
How far is that? 3 feet, 6 feet?
Yeah, it could be like 60 feet, it could be 20
60
feet,
feet?
or it could be 10 feet. It could be like 60 feet would be like a major fall.
Oh my gosh. Have you dropped that far before?
Yeah, I've definitely taken some like big rope falls. Yeah.
60 feet?
Ideally, you're like falling in air, and that's like
So you're not going to fall and then hit the rock.
right.
You're falling and you're just like in air.
Yeah, and a lot is trusting your climbing partner because it's the belayer's responsibility to give you a good catch. So
Oh my gosh.
being
So how
able
do you-
to give like
Yeah.
into the dynamicism of the rope.
How do you get back if you're falling into air? I'm assuming like the angle, I don't know, you're just like going upside down, I feel like, if that's
Yeah.
happening. So how do you actually get back to the rock?
So if you took like a really big fall, you would ideally have what's called a jumar to ascend the rope, and that's like you just put it into the rope and you climb up on the rope. If it's not too big of a fall, or if you can reach the rock, then you just kind of pull in the rope yourself. But in order to successfully send a climb, kind of like surfers send a wave, you have to start at the bottom and reach the top without falling.
Whoa.
So where there's like what I've gotten really into over the last few years is big wall climbing, and that's multiple rope lengths on top of each other. So you could be spending like multiple days on the cliff face. And in order to successfully free climb something, you need to not fall once. So if you start from the bottom and you reach the top, maybe it's like 3,000 feet or something, then everything in consecutive order has to be done perfectly.
What if you fall once? It won't catch you and bring you back down?
Then you have to go back down.
All the way back down?
So you have to go back down to the last pitch.
Okay.
And each pitch is broken up by rope lengths. Yeah.
How far is that?
Could be like 150 feet or so.
Oh my gosh.
It really depends. Yeah.
So if you fall 150 feet, is that even, people do that?
Oh, well, you
wouldn't fall that far.
You wouldn't fall that far.
Gotcha,
That's
I'm
like the length of the entire pitch.
Gotcha.
Hopefully you don't fall 150 feet. That'd be bad.
If you fell 6 feet, you'd have to do the whole 150
Yeah, you'd have
to go back
yeah,
down.
all the way.
No.
Yeah.
Come on.
And that happens all the time.
Shut up.
So you learn a lot about patience and like the process, because it's kind of like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. You have all of these different pieces, all these like blank cliff face sequences to put together and try and figure out, okay, how do I get through this one passage that's like really challenging
And make it without falling. Yeah.
Then put them all together.
What's the longest? So the natural progression for climbers who are competitive is to go on the world circuit ranks and try to win championships and do the artificial climbs, the indoor climb. It's mostly indoor, I'm assuming.
Yeah, indoor.
And then once you've maxed that out, the transition is to go into outdoor climbing.
That's a really natural progression, yeah, because climbing by nature is an outdoor sport. And that's where you can really push the envelope of human capacity, because it's like there's this limitless horizon of what you can possibly achieve and places that you can climb, cliffs to ascend.
What's the highest mountain you've climbed?
I climbed the north face of the Eiger in Switzerland, and that's, I think, about 13,000 feet.
Wait a minute, you climbed 13,000 feet from the bottom? Or was it like you were halfway up already and started from there?
From the bottom.
From the bottom. So you climbed 13,000 feet.
Yeah.
How long does that take?
Actually, we did that particular route in 3 days.
Wow.
And it was a First Female Ascent up one of the climbs. I did it with a climbing partner that we ended up what's called bivvying. So you sleep on the side of the mountain, and then you're just kind of like fully engulfed in the process of climbing big walls or big mountains, which I love because it kind of mutes all of the surrounding chaos of our daily lives.
Nothing else matters.
Yeah, you have to be present.
So this is a 3-day climb with one other person.
Yeah.
And you were the first female to complete it?
Yeah.
The First Female Ascents, is that what it's called?
Yeah, First Female Ascent. So a lot of my career in outdoor climbing is doing First Ascents or First Female Ascents around the world.
First Ascent for any human?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the goal.
That's really cool.
So I mean, climbing, like, it brings you everywhere, because there is basically a place to climb around the world in every remote location you can think of, except for, barren deserts, or normally there's some sandstone there.
There's something.
Yeah.
There's something to climb. So now when you do these first ascents, you always go with someone else, though, or do you do them alone?
Yeah, I always go with someone else, and often because you need a climbing partner. So the climbing partner that you have is who you're doing these climbs with. So normally you're climbing together, or your climbing partner is just belaying you and supporting you. And then often I go with a film crew too, because a lot of, professional climbing, like how you make a living is through your endorsement deals. And then a lot of what we do is content creation. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have content, then it's like maybe you get 1 or 2 photos or something, and that's it, right?
Yeah,
So
what's interesting is, like, in today's world, social media has shifted the whole lens and landscape of what professional climbing looks like, because now, instead of just talking about my adventures, I can share them on like a live basis, which is really cool.
Yeah, your Instagram's amazing. It's so inspiring. It's just like these epic shots of you like thousands of feet up. You're just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. How do you stay focused when it's like, okay, I'm about to climb this next step, but it's a scary moment. Like, I don't know, there's uneven footing, or
that's a
there's
good question.
nothing. Have there ever been a place where you're 1,000 feet up and there's nowhere to grab?
Yeah, sometimes you encounter parts of a climb that you don't think are physically possible for you. And a lot goes into like kind of whittling down all the little pieces and trying out different ways that you can find a solution.
Because you'll try it and you'll fall a bunch.
Yeah.
A few feet or whatever. Like 6
Yeah,
feet
exactly. And you keep like pulling back on.
No way.
Trying something else, fall, pull back on, try and find like a little credit card size like protrusion in the rock to like dangle off of. And then if that doesn't work, then you either like just keep banging your head on it or like train harder and return.
What happens if it doesn't work? Do you just go back down?
Yeah, sometimes.
Shut up. See, we 1,000 feet in the air.
Yeah, you could be like, I can't do this right now.
And there's 50 feet to go.
Yeah.
If that
You
ever
can
happened to
literally be stopped if you're like on like a 3,000 foot climb. You can be stopped by 6 feet.
No
Because
way.
like if something doesn't go, if you can't physically do it and move, then that can be like the end all. But I think a lot of what climbing's taught me is like there's often a solution. You just have to kind of like open your mind up to different possibilities. And a lot of climbing, what's so intriguing about the sport physically to me is that it can be the smallest difference in body positioning that makes all the difference. So it's like a very upper body, hand strength oriented sport, but you're really using your entire body, like your core, your hips, normally the driving force. You have ideally like using your footwork really well because you have to balance on like tiny little nubbins and shift your weight and allocate so that you can exert enough force to move up the wall.
Yeah. I feel bad now when I have these 20-foot artificial walls with huge handholds and I can't even get up half the time.
But like the artificial walls can be really challenging.
Really?
I mean, yeah. So a lot of pro climbers train indoors. Like I train at a climbing gym in order to prepare for my outdoor climbs. I even built a gym at my house.
No way.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's fun.
That's really cool.
It's like no excuses. Every room in my house has like some sort of training equipment. Like,
Just like
do I live in a gym or is my house turning into a gym?
That's
I don't know the
amazing.
balance.
That's really cool.
Work-life balance.
What's the key to being one of the greatest climbers? Like, what's the principles and the fundamentals? I'm hearing footwork, I'm hearing total body, core, everything, but what's like the real principles?
I mean, not to be cheesy or anything, but I think just being really passionate about it. Like, in my opinion, you can succeed at whatever it is that you really will yourself to want. And if you love what you're doing, then just naturally you're going to do it a lot and put in the hours of practice and engage your mind and your body and perform optimally.
Yeah.
And like, I love the climbing community so much. There's just this interconnected nature of it around the world. Like, I could go to Spain and have like this Spanish family that I connect with through this overarching passion. Or I could go to Madagascar or South America, or like wherever it is. There's always this climbing community that you can connect with because you're all doing something that you really love.
Wow.
So yeah, I think passion, in my opinion, is the number one ingredient to succeeding in anything.
Yeah. Is it more male dominated or female dominated?
It's
sport?
definitely male dominated, and the
Why is that?
background of climbing, I think it's just like the background of climbing was traditionally many men were doing it, and now there are definitely a lot more women getting into climbing, which is like amazing. I love to see it, and especially on the gym front.
Yeah.
Climbing has been exploding at its seams.
Wow.
From the gym industry. Like, gyms are popping up in urban locations around the world. But the transition from indoor climbing to outdoor climbing is still like, I think more men are making that transition than women. But as I go to more popular, what's called like sport climbing areas, then I'm seeing more women. I think that like women just need to see other women doing it and be like, oh yeah, that's like, why not? And that's what I feel strongly about like First Female Ascents and First Ascents in general. Is like, you don't need to be held back. If I see that a woman has done something, I can be so much more inspired and connected to that than if I see a male has done it, because maybe it's less relatable. But the beauty of climbing too is that women and men are both capable of achieving the same heights,
The same
so
climb.
to speak. Yeah.
I almost feel like women have more of an advantage because of, being tinier, smaller, and the strength in that size, right?
Yeah, on certain climbs, certainly. Like, women have a tendency to have really good technique. I mean,
Mobility,
like, obviously
everything.
men too, but yeah, and like hip mobility. Climbing is a strength to body weight ratio sport, so the stronger you are, then that's really good, but you also want to be in total like body control and awareness. So it's kind of like, I mean, in your ideal state, it's like a dance with the wall.
Did you take dance lessons?
I used to do ballet, and I
Okay.
did figure skating. I competed in figure skating, and that was kind of like, so I'm dual citizen with Canada, and like my whole family is like skiing, skating, winter sports. So I'm the only person in my family who climbs, actually.
Wow. Did figure skating help you to be a better climber?
I think ballet and figure skating gave me good body awareness. Like, another sport that has a really good crossover is gymnastics.
Yeah. Did you do gymnastics too, or no?
I didn't, no, but I love watching the gymnastics.
Can you do backflips and everything?
No, sadly.
No?
I
But
don't
you're strong.
think it's like, I don't know if I've tried backflips.
Have you ever tried to
really.
do just like a pull-up
pull-up?
challenge? Pull-up challenges?
Oh.
Just like, how many can you do?
Yeah, we do a lot of pull-ups in training. A lot of times are weighted pull-ups because that's a
I've
quicker
seen
way to
that.
gain
You're,
strength.
like holding like 100 pounds between your legs. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How many pull-ups can you do just free body? Not weighted.
In a row.
Yeah.
Probably around like 30 to 40.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. You've got to be able to do that, though. You need that endurance.
Yeah, you need, so something that I installed at my house, for instance, is a tread wall. And that's like a treadmill, but it's a rotating wall. So you could climb like thousands of feet in one session without actually vertically gaining.
It's a wall that moves and has...
It moves, yeah.
that has-
And then you can set different climbs on it. And you can take off holds, change them out. And then you can change the speed at which the motor goes.
That's
so
amazing.
From a notch of like 1 to 10. So that's something that I use a lot.
That's cool.
And why it's like helpful in my house.
Wow.
And then I have like a hang board, which is where you hang from your fingertips, normally with like added weight or train. What I'm currently training right now is one-arm pull-ups.
Can you do them?
I'm like close, but I can't
With, like, just
proclaim that I
fingertips?
can like do it when I'm.
Like a
Yeah, I
bar?
do it on a climbing hold because
So-
that's the most applicable.
Yeah. What about if you just grabbed a bar? Do you think you could do it?
I think that I'd be close. I think that I can hold the locks, which is like holding certain positions, but I'm too weak still to do
Really?
a full one
You're
arm.
too weak? How is that even possible?
I'll blame it on the boot. It's added weight.
There you go. How do you manage stress levels when you're in a difficult situation
Yeah.
on a wall?
So I've definitely been in really stressful situations where, so one time on one of my first big walls, I was climbing and we got to a point where we got off route and we had to untie and basically make a decision of if we were going to simul-climb our way to the top.
What's that mean?
Simul-climb is when you're connected to your climbing partner, and if you fall, then
They fall.
like you both go down.
Oh my gosh.
But there's the off chance of the other climber being able to hold you both. But it's like it's not likely. And this is like not a scenario that I would normally get into, but it's just the extreme situation of what climbing brings you to the moment. And it was because we were doing a big wall, and on big walls, normally you have to get to the top after a certain point because you can't rappel down the entirety of a route.
Oh my gosh.
And so when you get to the summit, then there's normally a rappel line that you go down, or it's like a hike. And we had about like 100 vertical feet left in front of us, and we couldn't find any sort of gear to secure it to. The rock was super malleable and loose. And then the other option was to continue to the top, just like free solo. And free soloing is not something that I do on a regular basis. Like, I'm actually quite not in favor of free soloing. Our community has lost a lot of people, and it's also like if you fall, it's a mathematical certainty that
You're
death.
gonna die.
Yeah, exactly. But in this situation, it was kind of like, this is our reality. So in that moment, there's no room for thinking about like what could go wrong, because that's just all of this negative energy that's going to be compounded and make that chance more likely. So you have to really, like, I had to just focus on my breath and be like, I'm getting to the top, and just like think positively and channel all of my concentration and energy towards climbing and reaching the summit. And
how high up were you at this point?
We're about like 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
Off the ground.
So you did free solo, or you didn't?
Yeah, we had to free solo. And this is like one of those situations where like risk mitigation of like fear and irrational fear, rational fear. This was like rational fear to have of like, I can't fall. And then also navigating loose rock. And this was in the Dolomites in Italy.
How steep is this?
This is pretty vertical.
It's like vertical.
Yeah, and I was climbing and my left hand and my left foot broke. And like I could feel the weight of this rock just like fall into this blank wisp of darkness. And it was like kind of like this mind-body convergence of, I just kind of like, I think I tapped into that flow state of just getting to the top.
Wait a minute.
And
your left hand and left foot broke. What do you mean? Like
the rock.
The rock broke.
Yeah.
So you're climbing and it's like the epic movie scene where it just falls back and you're hanging from one arm.
You're like, ah! Yeah.
And you're 100 feet from the top, 1,000 feet up.
Yeah, about
and if
that.
if the other hand would have broke as well, you'd be dead.
That's it, yeah.
Shut up. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. There was two options. You could free solo, or you could do the other one, which was
simulclimb, which is being connected to each other.
But if one person falls, then you both die.
Right. I mean, if the other person can't.
If they can't hold it, but if you're vertical, who's going to be able to hold it?
It's going to be difficult.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you both decided to free solo.
Yeah, it was kind of like, in climbing, this is a really rare situation. Like, that's happened to me. That was probably one of the most extreme situations that I've been in climbing. But you have to just confront what the reality in front of you is sometimes, and make decisions based on, I will always make the most safe decision. And that's why this scenario was so rattling to me, because I don't free solo, and we had to in that situation. And it's kind of like you have to make do with what you have.
Could you not have gone back down?
It would have been really, not really on this particular climb.
1,000 feet down, like, it's really hard to do that, right?
Yeah, so...
Can't rappel down, like, from that point?
No. Normally when you're on a big wall, it's hard to bail after a certain point.
Really?
Because you go through a lot of terrain that's really divergent.
Oh, yeah.
And in the Dolomites particularly. In somewhere like Yosemite, you can always, like, bail down. You don't have to get to the top. You can get back down, or more vertical, like, clean faces. You can do that, but
not here.
Certain mountains, you have to kind of like, once you're in it, you're in it.
So and
you have to commit.
And you know that going into it, like, there's no coming down after 500 feet or whatever, right? After a certain terrain. So you know going into this climb that, like, we have to make it to the top.
Yeah, it was also nearing nighttime, and so, like, you want to get to the top to get off of the actual mountain.
So how long were you guys, I guess, climbing until you... Are failing until you had to make this decision?
Yeah, we didn't fall there. We just were trying to find like points of security, like a bowl or somewhere where we could put a piece of equipment. And like a friend or a cam is what it's called, and that's like a
bolt.
A device, that you use for trad climbers use that, and like you put this device into a fissure, and there's different sizes that match up with the different size of the slot in the rock, and that is just as safe as a bolt if you know what you're doing and how to place it. You. Yeah,
so
exactly.
So if you fell, you'd be hanging.
Yeah. But when you're on really malleable rock that could break,
it's not secure.
Yeah, there's
Holy
not
cow.
Secure.
Okay, so how long were you thinking? Like, you can't find a space to lock in or to plug in, whatever it is. How long is that until you had to make a decision either way?
Yeah, probably under an hour for sure.
So you're trying to find a thing for an hour.
Yeah, because sometimes you can just get lost on like a particular cliff face, if it's big and with a lot of the climbs in the Dolomites, like it's not that clear of the path, and a lot is route finding, and like the hardest part of our climb, the physically and technically most challenging, was earlier on in the day, and we got through that part quite quickly. But then the more adventurous aspect of it, which actually is where stuff gets really dangerous, was where we ended up getting to the summit at about like 9 p.m. and having to sleep at the top that night.
Wow.
Unprepared.
Unprepared, no tent or
It was
anything.
hailing. Yeah,
Oh
it was really cold. It was like probably the coldest night of my life.
So are you hanging from your rope for this hour? Are you holding on to the side of the rock for an hour? Like
Well, so like we were at the last anchor that we saw. And so an anchor is like you are secure.
Yeah, so you can hang.
Yeah,
like
so you can hang
You don't
or
have to
like
hold on.
be like searching on the rock while traversing around.
Wow.
But yeah, so this is like not to scare you, because this is like, I've been climbing for 20 years and this has happened once.
Wow.
But I guess the point being, like, there are extreme circumstances that if you are pushing your envelope in outdoor climbing, sometimes you face extreme risk. And sometimes you face risk that actually isn't risk, and it's more like you're high up off your last protection piece and it seems scary to let go and fall, but you're actually going to be totally fine. And that's where I would say that I classify like rational fear and irrational fear. So like that you can get down to the root of like, why am I scared of falling? And maybe that's because the irrational fear would be, it's just like a scary air fall. And then the rational fear would be like, well, there's this huge ledge beneath me and I could break my leg. Then it's like, yeah, you have like a right to be scared. And so it's a lot about like choices and trusting your gear, trusting your climbing partner, trusting yourself.
Wow.
And not thinking about negative circumstances. Like sometimes you just have to act.
So you got 100 feet to go.
Back to this.
About 100 feet to go. You're like, okay, we're going to free solo. That means you unclip from everything.
Yeah, you coil the rope and carry it.
You carry it up. But as you're looking up to this top, 1,000 feet up, and you're seeing, okay, I'm about to free solo this. Do you see the route you're going to take? Like, do you see it before you take it? Or is it just a one step at a time looking for the next hold?
Yeah, so like this last stretch of the climb was actually really easy terrain. So we knew that we were capable. It's just like the rock was really loose. And finding the right way that's going to be like the most solid rock. And also like you don't want to get off route, but you don't really know where the route is. So you're just kind of like navigating the sea of limestone.
But you can feel different holds, like it's sturdy holds for you.
Yeah.
You can feel it. It's not like there's nothing.
So kind of like with professional skiers or professional surfers, professional rock climbers, you learn how to read rock faces. So I can look up at a cliff and see the most accessible way to get to the top.
Wow.
And that's based on like what protrusions in the rock you see, where you see like different angles, curvatures. You just kind of become an expert at reading that because that's what you're doing all the time.
Wow. And so when your left hand and left foot like broke off and you're hanging, did you have a fear that you were going to die then? Or was it like this sense of calm, you got this?
Yeah, no, this was one of my first big wall experiences, and I was definitely freaking out for a moment. And what was a really big turning point for me was the point that I was like, all of the, like, whatever I want to say to my climbing partner, whatever, like, blame or anxiety or negativity that I feel about this situation, he's in the exact same situation. He can't help me. Only I can help me get out of this, and that's by being in control of myself. So it's kind of like on a more micro level, like negative energy and negative thoughts and doubt doesn't get you anywhere. The only way to actually progress up the mountain or the climb or whatever it is like by thinking positively, by thinking about what you can do to get out of a bad situation and thinking like forward. So, I mean, that was kind of like the situation that had to be in control.
What's your thought process before going into a big climb or a first ascent? what do you visualize the day before, the morning of, and throughout the entire climb?
So before a big wall, something that I really like to do is like laying out everything that's in my pack. So like if I need my sleeping bag or sleeping mat and like my lunch for on the wall, normally I'll bring I actually make my own bars. So normally I'll bring like some bars and like beef jerky or turkey jerky, and I normally crave like salty foods on the wall, not sugary. Especially if you're doing something like alpine, because it's cold and you kind of want like heartier stuff. And then like your climbing gear, I'll always lay out like my different layers that I'm bringing. So like a soft shell, a down jacket, a Gore-Tex shell. And then I'll put it all in, and then it's like, okay, I'm ready to go. And then it's super exciting because normally you start super early, or like this summer I was doing what was called the Canadian Trilogy, which were 3 of the most challenging big walls in the Canadian Rockies. And I wanted to do the first female ascent of them and the second ascent. And some of the days were like 18-plus-hour days. And so you're kind of like...
you sleep on the wall?
No, I was doing them all I wanted to do them each in a day.
Wow.
So we would leave at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning, hike for about 4 hours, get to the base of the climb. Then you're on the climb for about like 12 hours.
Wow.
And then you come back down, and then you're hiking out into like the early dawn. And
you belay down, or you climb?
You rappel down, yeah.
It's called belay or rappel?
Rappel, yeah.
What's belay?
Belay is when you're belaying your climber. So the climber is going up. Then you have your belayer who's supporting you.
Got it. Okay, cool. This is crazy. This is a whole nother world.
I mean, yeah, like we have a little, climbing's growing, but there are still a lot of people who are unfamiliar of even the fact that climbing is a profession.
Yeah. And so what do you think about on the climb? Because you map everything out, you lay it out, you prepare that, but what's the thought process? Are you daydreaming? Are you just present in the moment and just thinking of the next positioning for your hand? Are you thinking about family? I mean, what's going through your mind for 18 hours a day? Because you got to think about something. Do you sing to yourself? Do you listen to podcasts? What is it?
You know, it's interesting because it really depends what portion of the climb I'm on. On the most difficult parts of a climb, I'm really present, and I'm thinking about what each next movement. And it could be like I'm narrating to myself, okay, right hand, turn, undercling, left hand, grab this, shift your hip, move your foot, like play by play.
Wow.
And then if I'm on a more easier section, then my mind can kind of wander a little bit, but I'm probably less in tune with like that flow state of when I'm optimally just like firing, and I'm only thinking in the present. My mind and my body are kind of like converged together. And I think that happens a lot when it's like the 8-hour mark and you've been climbing and you hiked before that for 4 hours and you're just like fatigued, but something is like pushing you through it and you're just like in it. And then a lot of big wall climbing is also systems. So setting up your belay system to help your partner, or like hauling up your bag, or organizing your rope. Like there's a lot of management that goes into it. So sometimes you're like thinking like this damn rope is tangled and I'm like hanging here and I'm just like, why is it windy? Like there's all sorts of things that you could be thinking of. But I also sometimes like kind of like have little mantras that go through my head.
What are those?
If I'm through like you can, or like hold on. Something like that. That's just like symbol.
Not let go. Just let go, relax.
Let go. Yeah, no.
Hold on.
You can.
You'll just say it over and over.
Or like just go.
Wow. Do you say it out loud or like, internally?
Kind of like internally. Yeah.
Yeah. Who taught you the power of mantras?
I think it was just like trial by error, like trial by fire. I haven't really learned any formal coaching on mantras, but I really do believe in listening to the universe. And I think that if you open yourself up to what the universe is trying to say to you, then there's this timing and process to life that makes sense. If you let it make sense. So everything in my life, I mean, I feel like when I look back, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. The timing or the situation that negative experience led me to a positive experience. It's kind of interesting. Like, I think that makes me less anxious if I just trust the process. Even right now, I have this air boot on because I have a fractured fibula, and it's like, when I did that, it was after, I was training for the New York City Marathon, and I was on a climbing trip through Europe and then Jordan and then back to Europe. And so I had this pain in my leg, and I was like, I don't know why my leg is so painful, but I'm just going to keep charging on. And I was like hiking with a heavy pack and climbing and
training for running?
Training for the marathon.
Gosh.
Like, not listening to my body. But then I got to Germany, and I got an MRI, and I learned that I had a stress fracture. So I was like, oh, good thing that my pain tolerance isn't negligible at least.
Yeah.
But then I was given this air boot, and I arrived to this series of like a conference in Miami with the International Women's Forum. And I had all of these kind of like blossoming business ideas that I needed to be in one place to actually like take advantage of and organize, I think, just like give my life a little room to breathe and be home and get grounded again.
Yeah.
So then I saw this air boot as like life's way of saying slow down and listen to your body and just be still. And I think now I'm in a much healthier mindset than I was when I was like not stopping traveling, because I was like on the road for like about 4 months straight, up to this point of like, okay, now you're gonna like
chill.
Yeah, like
one place.
Come inward and get your life, like just like let it chill a little. Be home.
Wow.
My house is in Boulder, but I'm like never there.
Yeah.
And I love Boulder.
Yeah. So
I have
good.
a cat who's like, hey,
Where
welcome to my house.
When you have a good cat that
Yeah.
can take care of itself, it is like a dog, it is chill.
She's super personable.
That's
Yeah.
the best. That's
Pixie.
the best. What's the greatest challenge you feel like you've had to overcome in your life?
Oh man, I think one big challenging chapter of my life was I was a full-time student at Columbia, and I was also managing my professional career as a climber.
Living in New York City?
Living in New York City, yeah. And I love New York City. It's probably my favorite city in the world, but it's not like a city where you can really climb outside a lot. I was traveling about like Thursday evenings through Monday evenings. I would be like in Beijing for a signing for Adidas, or like in Japan for a competition. Just like kind of like always living on the plane half of my week and doing my schoolwork on the plane, but also like trying to manage being a full-time student while also maintaining my career and not letting my physical performance slip too much, but also having to recognize the back seat that climbing was going to take for this particular time frame was kind of mentally and physically challenging, because I think like as athletes particularly, we're really hard on our bodies and on ourselves. Like if we're not getting the physical performance that we want out of ourselves, then I had to learn how to be just like kinder to myself and be like, it's okay, you have a lot going on, but you don't really like notice that in the moment. So you're like, why am I not performing at this level that I was last year? And you don't really comprehend like the obvious, like, oh, well, maybe it's because you're like doing this, and this on top of it all. So having graduated from school, I felt like I had this like big weight off my shoulders to really just focus in on my climbing career again, which was nice. And I'm so thankful that I went to school though, because I grew up in a family that like academics were number one, and climbing was something that my parents were really supportive of me doing that because that's what I was passionate about, but they never provided any sort of like, they weren't like, if you don't win nationals, like that's like you're terrible type thing. They were more like, you need to get straight A's at school.
And then you can
take off time to go climbing.
Wow.
But they really saw like this like academics and athletics balance converge really well, and so I think that what I'm really thankful that they pushed on me was just the importance of putting my best self forward. And like my dad was always like, have fun, try your hardest, and be safe. And that was like the three things that is like, have fun, try your hardest. Like, didn't matter if you like won or lost, as long as you like put your best self forward, and then like be safe was like, you know, parent denominator.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Always be safe, right? Well, who was more influential in your life growing up, mom or dad?
I would say that my mom and I had a closer relationship. Just we are probably more similar. My dad played football and was really into watching hockey games. I grew up going to the Capitals games. We had season tickets.
Yeah.
I love hockey.
My buddy had played with him for 10, 11 seasons. Brooks Like.
Yeah. I know of him.
Yeah.
I'm a big hockey fan. And then when I was in New York, the Rangers are like the team that I'd root for, but the Caps were always, I mean, when they won the Stanley Cup, I was like, this is amazing.
Crazy, yeah.
But my mom actually learned how to belay me. So she would come to the gym and belay me when I was training, and then like my coach would tell me what to do, and she would be there to support.
It's amazing.
But I never once like shared a contract with my parents, nor like asked them for any like professional help. And I think that was like a little bit of like me proving myself in this niche sport, that when I grew up, like professional climbing wasn't something that was what I aspired to do, because professional climbing wasn't really like a thing. It was like professional climbers, people that I looked up to, like lived in their vans in Yosemite and like were dirtbags. And that's not to like knock that culture.
Yeah.
It's just like they weren't sponsored with like well supportive contracts and living wherever they wanted and traveling around the world.
Yeah.
That's kind of been like a new thing.
What has brought that to, I guess, to brands to be more invested in climbers? What is that? Is that different content than people are putting out there? Is that movies? Is that...
I think that's access to content. Like we now have so many platforms to share content.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the gym industry is definitely leading this fitness trend of like climbing is this social form of exercise that's a really great all body sport. Climbing is like this gateway to the outdoors that is similar to skiing. Like families go on ski vacations, and you can do a destination climbing vacation. Like
that's cool.
You can bring your family to Spain and go climbing, or go to Yosemite. And then also I think it's just like people who are spokespeople of the sport of climbing doing their job of like trying to reach a broader audience. Like for my career, I just really want to inspire more people to know about what climbing is. And even if they don't climb, just like see my career as like, you can do whatever you're passionate about, and even if it's not a professional already, you can create that path.
And make a living off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're making a full-time living doing your passion, even though it's not like this popular, big mainstream sport or activity, or you call it a sport?
Yeah, sport.
Yeah. Even if it's outdoor and there's no like competition, it's still
because there is competition, but yeah, adventure sport is really the category of climbing. Like climbing, I mean, my contracts are what put me through Columbia.
Wow.
And now, you can be a climber and make a good living off of the sport like any other, I think, like high-end elite athlete. But it's definitely a new discipline of, I mean, it's a new sport.
Yeah.
And it's, we have really purist roots, and there's sides of climbing that are really anti-corporate sponsors, and then there's like a new age that's really accepting of like, we want to grow our sport. We accept these bigger companies being involved because that means more exposure and more support to giving back and conservation and our nonprofits. Like, I mean, the more you educate people to care about the environment because they're being interactive with it, then I think the more inclined they are to protect it as well. And that's, I mean, as a climber, like we naturally have this affinity for the outdoor spaces and for conservation because that's our natural playground.
Yeah. Wow. And what is, do you have a lot of friends who've died from the sport?
I do have
like close friends, or
we've yeah. We've definitely suffered some significant losses in our community, and I mean, there are certain people that I've lost that have really rattled me in ways like that have either been close friends or just people that I've like looked up to and seen as like Dean Potter, for instance. His death, he was always known as like the safe and calculated climber, even though what he was doing was so extreme. And then I think like he died base jumping, but it really like put the climbing community at like this point of like no one's indestructible and we're all mortal. And I think that's really my my issue with free soloing is that it just takes one mistake and
one
like
slip. Yeah.
That's it.
How many people are free soloing a year?
Not many.
Is this
A very small percentage.
20? Is this
of the
100?
sport.
Is this?
I think you'd probably need to do like more like a percentage of climbers, and that's probably like 1%.
1%, yeah.
Of like, you know, like Alex Honnold, obviously, probably a lot of people have seen free solo. That's such an anomaly.
Yeah.
Like, even Tommy Caldwell in the film, who was my hero in the film, spoke so candidly about what free soloing is, and he's like one of the great all-time legends in climbing, but he doesn't free solo because, I mean, if I fall, it's okay. Maybe I break something, but having gone through personal loss from like family to friends, I know that like I don't want to put my family through my own passing.
Yeah.
Like I want to be there, and I've just like seen firsthand what loss can do to a family, and that's really hard to comprehend. Like why I would selfishly decide to do that to my friends and family.
Yeah, because you're already at risk, but you're just taking calculated risks and being as safe as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which, like, after that story I told you, people were probably like, yeah, right. But, like, that was one time in, like, you know, my, like, 20 years of climbing. And I've definitely had, like, risky situations that were maybe similar. But I think a lot is, like, knowing how to use your equipment, being as expert as you can about your systems and knowledgeable and why, like, I mean, with climbing, there's like this endless potential of growth and wisdom that you can get for the mountains and for climbing, that you stay humble because, I mean, the mountain doesn't care like what's going to happen to you.
Doesn't have feelings.
Yeah.
No emotion.
No emotion coming from it.
It's a rock.
Yeah.
Solid rock. Now you
Solid rock.
Now you've lost many friends, but you said you also lost people in your family. Is your dad passed away?
Yeah, he had a stroke in 2014 and never woke up from it.
And what was that like for you and your family? And did it change your path down your career in a different way, or did it just confirm to go down it in a deeper way?
I think when I lost my dad, it brought a lot more awareness to being present in the moment and just appreciating the people in my life. I had just gone on a trip we drove from Montreal back to DC where I grew up, my dad and I, and then I was taken off to Wyoming, and I was going there on a climbing trip, and what was really interesting was that it was like a clear bluebird day, and my flight, he brought me to the airport, and my flight was canceled, and it was delayed 24 hours, and he was like, hey, Dad, can you pick me up? And like, came, picked me up at the airport. We went and spent the night. We watched the Kings versus the Rangers. It was the year that they were in the playoffs together. Got burgers. Then the next morning, he brought me to the airport, and I took off to Wyoming. And it was like, then 2 weeks later, my mom called me from the ambulance and was like, Dad just had a stroke. And I was out climbing. I drove straight to the airport, and I was like, I'll be there for when he wakes up. And there was like this week in the hospital just waiting, not knowing what's going to happen. And then he never did come to from that. But it's like moments like that where I look back and I'm like, no, that's so interesting that, like, why was my flight canceled? Or, like, you can kind of, like, think about that. And then no matter what you believe, you can just like see moments as like having appreciation for them. And I think that in my life, like over the years, I've definitely fine-tuned, like I have a lot of comfort and self-confidence through climbing, and that's like a part of my identity, and it's given me a lot of direction with my life. But then appreciating like who my friends who are the closest to me are, and my brother, my mom, and I have a really close relationship, and some of my cousins, my aunts and uncles also, like they're all in Canada. So that's kind of like where I call home when I say like I'm going back for Christmas. I go to Canada. My mom's in Montreal, and we grew up at the house in Mont-Tremblant. But I think just like maintaining contact with the relationships that you have, and not just like taking people for granted is important. And that's something that, I mean, even as the years go by, I become more appreciative of it, because once you're, I mean, you know, like once you're in a more public sphere, you have to kind of filter like the intention of people sometimes. And I think that that makes me more appreciative of the grounding, like loving forces in my life. And like that's where I feel the most whole.
Wow. Would you say that was one of the biggest lessons you took away from his death, or?
Yeah, I think that appreciating the moment. And being aware that nothing is certain. Like things can change.
Was he a healthy guy? Was he?
Yeah, there was no lead up.
Really?
I mean, it was just like this. He was at the coffee table in our dining room with my mom, my brother, and then he fell over, and the ambulance came actually right away. We lived in Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia.
Like 10 minutes away or something, yeah.
Super quick. But it was a hemorrhagic stroke, I think is what it's called. And there was like excessive bleeding in his brain, which shot all neurological functioning. And
you saw him a couple weeks before. He's healthy. He worked out, or he ate pretty healthy, or?
Yeah, like he didn't. He was like big. He was Italian, so he was always throwing the steaks on the grill, and like probably ate way too much red meat. And like there were probably like health concerns that you could look at in retrospect, but from our state, everything was fine.
Yeah, seemed fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was really stressed, and that's another thing. Is like
stress.
He was running his own business, and like I think that stress is such a killer. Like it's, I mean, literally, you know.
I had a friend on a couple weeks ago, Robert Greene, who came out with this a new book, and it took him 5 years to complete the book, and he had a stroke when he finished it, and he says a lot of it he thinks was due to the stress that he put himself through. Because he had so much pressure that he created for himself to have this perfect book, you know, and his legacy. And he worked out every day. He ate very clean, but the stress he thinks is what caused the stroke, which is a reminder and a wake-up call for us to never allow the stress to ruin and run our lives, and to manage the stress. And us being in control of it, you know. And I think it's our responsibility to be aware of it. You know, if it's happening for a long periods of time, we really get to reassess and reflect and be aware on how we're going to shift it and take ownership over that stress level through meditation, or through sleeping more, or through reshifting our focus on what we're stressing on. So
I'm such a proponent of sleep.
It's
like
key.
I could not believe more in the necessity of 8 hours.
Sleep is crucial. I was just listening to an interview this morning with LeBron James on Tim Ferriss's show, actually. And he was like, I need 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep. Otherwise, I'm going to nap throughout the day. Because as an athlete, you need to be focused mentally. And your body needs to recover, obviously, but you need to have the mental clarity. And if you are lacking sleep, you're not going to have the mental clarity.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
And then I'm like sick, like boom, if I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
If it's like more than 2 days, like I'm out.
You're sick for like a few days. Yeah, you need to recover. Your body's shutting down. Now, when you're on the side of a mountain sleeping, because you do some climbs where you have to bring like a whole tent.
A portaledge.
What's it called?
A portaledge.
Portaledge. Not
Yeah.
a porta potty?
Not a porta potty. They have to like figure out how to go to the bathroom up there.
How do you even do that? Like you're with someone else and you're...
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you get to know your climbing partner really well. So you want me to break it down?
Break it down to sleeping on the side of a mountain.
Okay, great.
Where it's like...
Yeah, so the portaledge is like a 4 foot by 6 foot, basically like a hammock that you set up and you secure on 3 points on the wall. 3 points of security, ideally. And you sleep with a harness on. I normally take the leg loops off my harness, so it's like a waistband. And you sleep in the sleeping bag. Like, I've
1,000 feet up, 2,000 feet
not
up.
ever rolled off, but like you have to secure it so it's flat out from the wall. But yeah, when you wake up, you like look down and you've got like thousands of feet of cliff below you.
That's crazy. Do you sometimes think when you wake up, like I'm in my bed in Colorado, and you have to remind yourself,
I never sleep that well on the portaledge.
You're like just in and out constantly.
Yeah, a little bit like, I mean, it's not comfortable. Like sleeping on a hammock isn't that comfortable.
No.
You kind of wake up and you're like, I can't really move around,
Stiff.
or like kind of like have this illusion that you're like falling, but you're like not falling. But the views are amazing. The views are totally worth it.
Yeah. Wow.
So the reason that you do that
Yeah.
is like because when you're doing a big wall, and if it's like over a certain amount of feet, then maybe you need multiple days to do it. In order to successfully do a big wall from the bottom to the top, you have to do everything consecutively.
It's crazy.
So you sleep and then you like continue on. Maybe you're doing like 8 to 12 hour days of climbing and then sleeping on the portaledge, 8 to 12 hours of climbing, like making your way consecutively.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's not crazy.
You're in the...
You're in it. Yeah, like
from the outside
what you do
looking in,
is crazy to me.
Sure. But from the outside
I
looking
could
in,
never do it.
I know, just the side of a mountain like that. That's nuts. What's your vision moving forward with all this? Doing these crazy ascents all over the world and being a global citizen and being a female championing this mindset and this vision that you have. What's your mission?
That's a great reflective question, because I would love to do a first ascent on every continent around the world. I think that
a first time for any human,
Yeah.
not man or woman, but anyone.
Yeah.
A first ascent on every continent.
Yeah. So that's one of my like more like endemic climbing goals. I think that climbing creates this space for exploration and connectedness that, like, I just went to the Middle East for my first time in October, and living and growing up in this Western world, we are fed kind of like these like ideas of what other parts of the world look like. And I think that it's not until you actually travel and immerse yourself in a different culture that you see so many human commonalities. And that is what enables us to be better global citizens. It's like you learn about the world through traveling and through experiences. And so with climbing, I'd like to travel to more places and really bring climbing to places that may not actually have climbing already. And then also educate more people about what our sport is. Serve as an ambassador and spokesperson for our sport as it grows into all these different spaces. In the Olympics, I mean, in the outdoor space, try and encourage people to conserve and protect our environment. And I work with the Women's Sports Foundation. I'm on the board. And you know, the whole concept is equal pay and equal play for women in sports. So bringing more attention. I've also got this like series that I do that's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday.
I've seen that, yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, so
On
each
YouTube?
Tuesday, it runs on Outside TV, and then I post it to my YouTube channel too. But the whole concept was like bring people into my world a little bit more and provide this behind the scenes glimpse of what my life looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, I like creating content. Like a lot of what I do is doing video projects and working with other people. And I don't really know beyond that. Like, it's kind of like what's exciting and intimidating is that if you asked me 5 years ago, what are you going to be doing today in 2018? I have no idea. I had no idea I'd have like the awesome opportunity to be talking with you.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So you're present to what's happening every week, every month, but also excited about potential in the future too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like a certain roadmap that you can have that gives you a sense of direction, but then you can't really like put every sort of pin in the road or like stoplight that's gonna go.
That's cool. Is there any question you would like to answer that maybe people usually don't ask you that you wish they did?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or anything you think we should know about you that maybe most people don't know about?
Oh, well, most people know, but my favorite color is pink.
Okay.
I also have a superstition. I always have to paint my nails pink before like a achievement that I want to do. And let's see. I mean, I mentioned that I'm a dual citizen with Canada. A lot of people don't know that actually because I competed for the U.S. team.
Smart move. Yeah.
Thank you. The Canadians didn't think so. I guess I could talk a little bit about my next year's plans. Like I have a trip through South America in the spring, and then I have a climb in Central Africa that I want to accomplish in July, and a climb up El Cap in Yosemite in the fall, and then kind of like these other sporadic trips throughout the year. But that's kind of like on the horizon. So,
Are these part of the First Ascent in every continent? Is this part of that?
Yeah, so well, in Central Africa, it would be a Second Ascent and First Female Ascent. And in Bolivia and Argentina, it would be a series of First Ascents and some First Female Ascents and just overall exploration. There isn't much climbing in Bolivia that exists already. So something that I think that climbing has this amazing capability of improving and bolstering the ecotourism landscape of underdeveloped regions in the world. So like we did that in Indonesia. I did a sea kayaking and climbing trip where the whole mission was to develop the ecotourism industry and create an alternative for the economic infrastructure to counter the mining industry that was really destructing the natural environment and the natural community there. So we went to like rural islands in Indonesia, like Sumba and Malo, and it was a really moving project to be a part of. So I'd like to replicate that that kind of like that trip in different areas around the world.
That's cool. How can people support you and your mission and follow you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, Sasha Digiulian, just my name. Stay in tune with like the content. Normally, if I have like a call to action, I'll throw it up on my website, just myname.com, or on social media.
Okay.
And I try and keep that current.
Yeah, the Instagram is inspiring. You got a lot of amazing photos and videos there, so make sure you guys check that out. We'll link it all up here. Final couple questions for you. This one's called the 3 Truths. And if there was your last day many years from now on Earth, and you got to choose the day that you got to leave, right? You could be 200 years old.
Okay.
You get to choose the day, any day in the future, but you got to finally pick a day. And you get to leave behind 3 things you know to be true about all of your experiences in life. I call it the 3 truths. These would be lessons that you would share with the world.
Like philosophies.
Yeah, your lessons, your truths. And people wouldn't have access to any other content that you've ever created. This is all they would have access to are these 3 truths.
Oh, great.
What would you say are yours? What would you share with all of us?
Kindness. I think that like no matter who you are, no matter like what you've accomplished, just human kindness is so important, and that's what connects us all. Passion, that's like such a driving force in my life. And what I think that no matter if it's sports or music or arts, like just find your passion and live your life by that. And I think, gosh, third one of like my lasting legacy, perseverance. Like no matter what sort of like doubt you're faced with or negativity, roadblocks, like you can always achieve what you want if you will yourself the most. And I think that like the universe is on your side, so persevere and believe it and be a good person. So yeah.
Those are
kindness, passion, and perseverance.
I like those. Well, I got to acknowledge you, Sasha, for a moment because it's been inspiring to watch your journey over the last couple of years. I just feel like you're constantly showing up consistently and doing and challenging yourself. You're not just doing the easy thing, you're doing the hard thing. And you're inspiring people through your message. You're inspiring all humans, but also women who maybe feel like there's certain challenges in their life they don't feel like they can overcome. You're helping them and inspiring them to do that in their own life. So I acknowledge you for all of that, and I acknowledge you for constantly paving the way and doing the challenging things and being a good person and living with passion, because I feel it and it's inspiring. And thank you for being here. I appreciate this. I'm glad we got to make this finally happen.
Me too. No, thank you so much for having me here.
Of course.
It's such a pleasure.
My final question is, what's your definition of greatness?
My definition of greatness is just loving what you do every day.
Sasha.
Boom.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you.